back to At the Round Table with Ma'am Lil. We want to thank our sponsor, Guarantee Rate Mortgage Company. For all your mortgage needs, give branch manager Cora Holbrook a call at area code 781-342-0252. Guaranteed Mortgage is located at 75 State Street in downtown Boston, Mass. Guaranteed Rate Mortgage Company, guaranteed to exceed your expectation. So we are live, folks. I know folks saying, "Oh, what is that?" No, we are back live. We're just departing with our guests for the last hour. We're talking about the human trafficking, and we're going to actually make that a regular segment here. We're going to talk about it. So we want to thank Attorney Marlise Samay from the Chris Foundation, President of Chris Foundation, and also Attorney Bato from the Human Rights Ambassador for the Royal Meridian International and Queen Maria Lenora. I hope I said that right. Also thanking Kurt Thompson, one of our frequent callers and one of the supporters here at the Round Table. And again, Cora Holbrook, our sponsor here at the Round Table from Guarantee Rate Mortgage, and also retired police detective Renee Callender, who is actually now the CEO and Profit of Conflict Resolution Inc. In our previous hour. I want to thank them for their engagement in the conversation and the topic, and such an important topic on human trafficking, human rights. Just sad he was saying that you can't even say human rights in some countries, and that's how folks are able to exploit individuals in that manner. So again, we are back live. We apologize for that little hiccup there, but we are back live. And we are in studio in this last hour here. We're going to pick up what we were talking about in our 7 o'clock hour. We're talking about the education system here in Massachusetts, and the difference now that we're seeing in our young people now. Are we really educating ourselves? And in some states now, folks want to indoctrinate them. We were talking about the fact that in Upland, California there, the racist cards that the sixth graders were sending out to their friends to celebrate Black History Month, giving them cards saying, "You're my favorite monkey, my favorite cotton picker," pictures of them being hung as slaves, saying that they're only half black, so they're only give them half a black back rub. And we see in this country our elected officials in some states, like I said, they're saying the quiet part out loud now, in which the racism is on full display, in which people are now basically want to succeed from the country. This is, really just a history repeating itself, where, the South wanted to succeed from the North, and that's what they're saying. But I tell people, be careful what you wish for, because there was also a chart that I saw, and it showed some of these states that are talking about succeeding from the United States as part of the United States. When you look at what they get from taxpayers from other parts of the country and what they actually contribute in taxes, they would be doing themselves a disservice by exiling themselves from here, because what we see here now in this country is that, for instance, places like West Virginia and places like that, they get more back in taxes, more back from other states like Massachusetts. I realize how much more we pay in than we get back from the federal government and services, and also in return. So we send more to the capital than we return. And some of these states that want to succeed, they actually send less in. So if they want to go, I'm not sure how they're going to support themselves going forward, because it does take money to operate. So 617-282-0685, 617-282-0685. We're going to get back into it. Like I said, what's happening in our education system here? If you are one of the baby boomers, which I am currently one of them now, Pastor Hobbs and ourselves, were we better educated? We were talking with some of our guests, our callers, in the 7 o'clock hour. And it was very enlightening, the fact that, when we had schools in our community, I felt I was better educated than when I was forced into busing. I know several of my siblings is the reason why, a big reason why they did not finish their education even at the high school, because every day was a fight. When you get up in the morning and, during busing, you have to go and fight just to get inside. There wasn't a lot of learning going on, and people paid the price for that, and we're just seeing a domino effect where it's sad to say that today young people can walk into any school in the city, and yet the education, they're dropping out. We don't see them participating in education in a way that is meaningful and learning. And we're just wondering, is that a product of their parents? Some of them are older, but some of them that have gone through busing that did not get or seek or value education, and so they weren't able to pass on the importance of that to their children. And without that, it's easier for folks to deny you employment, meaningful employment, because I know that recently they raised the minimum wage in some places to $15 an hour, and that's a little over $600 a week, folks. And if you take out taxes and if you look at what it costs to actually live in Boston, I'm talking about Boston specific, most rents for a one bedroom is close to $2,500, and anything above that is more than that. Realistically, back a few years ago, that would be a mortgage payment on a home, not rent. Mortgage is a double that now. For the average price for a home in Boston is close to $800,000, which is not attainable when you're making $600 a week, trying to take care of yourself, let alone a family. You factor in all the other things: insurance, gas. Have any of you been to the grocery store lately and seen what, like I said, I know in Boston you have to pay for a bag. I tell people you don't need a bag because it's not enough to take out of the store. You can carry it out in your hand. So I'm not insulting them. Like, hey, if I go in a store in Boston, if I spend $100, I can put it in my pocket what I bought, because it's not a whole lot. I mean, the prices are just through the roof, and I'm not sure how soon that's going to come down. But we have a division in this country. A lot of it is on the educational line. As folks have alluded to, our exam schools here in Boston, Latin Academy, Latin, the O'Brien, they should be the exception, they should be the norm, not the exception. And that's where we are. We spend almost $1.4 billion with a B on schools here in Boston. And we know a lot of that is, administrative costs, but it's averaging somewhere around $28,000 per student. And the numbers have declined from recent years of around 75,000 students in the Boston public schools to hovering a little over 47,000. And we're spending more for less. We're spending more, again, for less. What are we getting in return? I mean, if you were spending $1.4 billion and you had a business and it was not producing a profit, I'm sure it would be closed down by now. So we have to do better as far as our education here. And then we figure out how is it that we're going to do that. How do we get back on track with learning in our schools? How do we get back on track with the lack of violence? And the biggest piece to that is how do we get parents plugged back in to the importance of the education? Like Dr. Bradley Rhodes was talking about Jamal, but the parents, and Jamal said, his mom was willing to pay, and maybe she didn't have the other piece, the component of that, of her being able to help, but she was saying, because I don't have that, I'm willing to pony up to pay for that and pay someone else to do that. Because I know even my neighborhood, right, my wife has her master's degree in mathematics. Mm-hmm. The neighbors found out. She tutored one child. Now she has a waiting list. These parents are willing to invest in their children's education, mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. And they see that there is a need for it, but also they see the benefit of their child long term.
Well, it's the equalizer, brother. It's really the equalizer.
Yes.
It doesn't tear down the barriers, by the way.
No.
All right. Even at my educational level, mm-hmm, you still get those assumptions about you based on who you are. Mm-hmm. And I was just talking to the folks outside about this surreptitious view, a surreptitious the system that we have in place, mm-hmm, that one is unlike India, mm-hmm, where it's clear. Right. In America, it's just it's through vision. You know what I mean? Based on what you look like, we assume these things, these connotations are attached to you, mm-hmm, because you have the skin color,
and not just what you look, but your zip code, right?
Absolutely.
But that's changing because now that zip code, some of these zip codes that weren't so favorable now are being a little bit mixed. Like we said, gentrification is real, right?
It's very real, brother. And actually perpetuating gentrification through economics is very real.
Right. So we're seeing a movement, and we're going to see more of a demand. Mm-hmm. as that takes place, as it was saying earlier in our 7 o'clock hour, that I'm not going to. The reason why a lot of us move outside of the city is because we're looking for safer environments, but also looking for what systems we can get our kids in education where we don't, if we're going to be paying taxes on our homes, that we shouldn't have to also be paying for them to go to private school.
Especially the taxes level at the level of Boston. Boston has some serious taxes.
They do. Actually, believe it or not, like Boston's taxes, when you look at other places of comparable, because they have that rebate if you live in the home, which a lot of cities and towns do not have. Boston's taxes are reasonable in that aspect, but when you have to factor in having to put your child in private school, that I consider another tax, right?
Well, it is a tax. That's where I'm going.
Right.
I mean, it may be reasonable in terms of paying the money out, but when you have to pay all those other expenses because you're in a dysfunctional school system, that's another form of tax.
Well, you're right, because most places, I mean, Catholic schools you can get in, some of them around $8,000. But like I said, now you factor that into if you're paying, even if it's $7,000, $6,000 to $7,000 a year in property taxes. Now you're back at to where if I'm living in a comparable neighborhood where I have a good school system, it's a safer environment, and my taxes might be $12,000. I'm right there, you know. So it balances out.
Yeah.
But the other things that don't balance is the violence. You know, we're seeing an increase. I mean, Boston has had, I believe, 7 murders in the last 7 weeks, right? And yes, I know, yes, and the shootings are multiple, right? You know,
what are we doing to ourselves?
Well, exactly. And if you look at the charts, they're in predominantly the same areas, right? Where in fact, after attending the funeral, awake on Monday, one of my colleagues from another department, his daughter was murdered last weekend.
In the city?
Yeah, a former lieutenant, the former head of the president of the minority state police. His daughter was murdered.
Don't say.
I used to. The arrangements on Monday. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, she was just having some work done on her car in the neighborhood, and she wasn't from all reports, she wasn't the intended person, but
she was unintentional victim.
Right, and so
my God,
right, early 30s. I mean, that's I can't even imagine.
Life just begun, man.
Right, getting that call, family that did everything right. Matter of fact, I don't even think she lived in the city, but just like the young man that was the 13-year-old that was murdered, his family got him out of here, and he comes back to visit his grandmother, and from recent reports is that the grandmother was just heartbroken from this. We don't know whether it was suicide, but she recently passed away. His grandmother,
heartbroken probably. I mean, because that's, in fact, I was just with my grandkids last night, giving my granddaughter a blanket for her birthday with a special message written on it from me and my wife Erica, and that's your legacy, Doc. You know what I mean? That's the way God calls you and keep you here at the same time through your people. You know what I'm saying? So it's very, very, very painful as a grandparent. I just can't even begin to imagine losing my grandbaby. I should go first by nature. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I mean? To be left here, man.
A parent, should never have to bury their child. Right?
The child should bury the parent.
Yeah.
And that is.
No, so
I hate to even think about that, brother.
Yeah, but like I said, the education is a key component of success. Even programs like T. Michael's The People's Academy, right? That if you're not, education doesn't always mean you have to have a college degree to be successful. As you said a few weeks ago, when a lot of folks had that problem with frozen pipes, right? And they called that plumber, right? They saw how well trained it was and what it cost to have that plumber come in your home, right? Just to assess the problem was a lot more than most people who kind of sometimes see themselves as elitists, right? What they make an hour compared to what that plumber gave you the bill for, right? So I tell folks, don't put your nose up, frown your nose up against folks just thinking because of their you may not think of what they do as respectable, but I guarantee you they charge you like they were a doctor. They charge you like they were an attorney. So I don't know how we fix this education piece, if it can be fixed at all. I mean, I see it declining, and I see it in real time. You know, I mean, we have less and less kids in the system and less kids being educated, but we're seeing more violence. You know, there was a huge altercation with kids last week, school vacation, at an underage party, and these kids were just acting a fool, attacking each other. I mean, as many police officers were responding, it didn't matter. You know, where, you know, before, kids, if you were young, you got out of there. You know, you didn't hang around to confront law enforcement. Now kids are more willing to confront law enforcement, but they say it's law enforcement that is the problem.
No, it's not. It's the breakdown of the family. That's the problem. Because, I mean, think about it, Larry. What would have happened to us if we confronted law enforcement when we got home?
Yeah.
You know, all respect for authority starts in the home. That's just I was raised that way. You know what I mean? And I grew up to be a police officer. All respect for authority starts at home. But when you take that authoritative responsibility away from the parent, what do you expect when the child get out into the community and have to adhere to the rules of society, which we call laws?
Right. Well, the problem No, your point is well taken, because I always, I respected mom. I always tell you respect your elders, right? And that didn't just mean your parent.
That's right.
And my mom was a single parent, so I knew that I could not behave that way because I was brought up that you did not talk back to elders, right? So kids were seen and not heard.
That's right.
Right. You didn't have any rights, right? If the adult was wrong, you were wrong.
That's right.
Right. There was no debate here. So you didn't get into conflicts with adults. You didn't challenge authority in the way that these kids now, and they're emboldened by people who saying that the police and other folks are the problem, that they're the pipeline to prison. Nothing to do with your behavior. You know, that you're going to be able to go to work someplace and assault another employee, and your employer is going to say, yeah, this is acceptable behavior here. We're going to give you a raise. We're going to promote you, right? It's not going to happen. What college campus is going to accept that type of behavior? You work on a college campus, right? You're a professor, right? At a college. If one of your students were to behave like that in the classroom, what would be the outcome?
Out.
Right.
Probably out of the school.
And no refund, right?
No refund.
Right. And so they know that, right?
That money, yes.
That's not acceptable behavior, right?
Yeah.
To be disrespectful to you, right? Do your students engage with you in a disrespectful way?
I mean, in fact, I just received an email from one of my students who complaining about one of the questions I had on my midterm. And my response was, okay, I check it out, but the respect was never, ever in question. You know, I think, Dr. Bradley, that this might be miskeyed. I'm human.
Right.
It could possibly happen.
Right.
So if it happens, and we'll just make the corrections and we'll keep it on. But he never, ever disrespect the fact, number one, that I'm an adult, and number two, I'm a PhD.
Right.
Adult with a PhD.
Right.
You know, and, you know, it
It
doesn't
wasn't
make
like
me
who the
infallible.
blank do
Yeah,
blank
exactly,
blank, right?
exactly.
And when I see you, I'm going to,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I had a child recently where he had assaulted another child viciously, and his next victim was going to be me, while his parent is listening to him threatening me.
Whoa. No, whoa. The parent is part of the conversation.
Yeah, the parent is on the phone listening to this because the phone is on speaker.
And the parent never intervened?
They did. When I told that child, when he said that he was going to do to me what he had just done to that other child, and I said to him, if that ambulance has not left yet, if you put your hands on me, I will hurt you. I will hurt you.
Don't tell me the parent came after you.
Then the parent said, oh, I can't. You threatening my child? I'm
you
giving
serious?
the child some of the best advice I can get. Exactly, right? I said, wait a minute. You just heard your child threaten to put his hands on me, and you said nothing. You thought that was fine, and I should just take that. The verbal stuff, I don't like it, but you know what? You mouth off, and your parent, that's entirely up to you.
Yeah,
but when you're talking about physically harming me, and if I don't tell you, because now I embolden you, if I tell you, and I'm telling him, giving him, I told her, I'm giving him the best advice I can give him, because rather tell him than show him what his actions will cause him, because I will not be hurt by anyone. I'm not.
There lies the problem, Larry.
I'm not there to be a punching bag.
When the parent condones the behavior, what are you saying to the child when you're silent when a child threatens an adult? My parent or my older sister, people that had authority over me, would say, "Boy, you're not disrespecting," and then went up outside my head, easily, quickly, because it was seen as a disrespect not only of the adult but of the family, how you were raised, how you were brought up. So it's a different moral system and it's a different value system that we have today. That's the problem.
Well, I always say this, Dr. Bradley, and it's true. I think about it now that I'm grown and I have children, that if you don't respect the people who brought you into this world, everyone else is fair game, right?
You got that right.
Because if you don't respect the adult that's in your home, the person with the badge, the person with the pencil and the eraser in the classroom is just another adult that you haven't learned to respect at home. These kids have a way of talking to adults, and the sad part is the people who are in authority, who are in power, are empowering children. You say you have all these reforms because you say their minds are not developed enough and they shouldn't be making decisions that they're making. But yet you're saying that adults who are trying to correct the behavior should not be charged with correcting the behavior. It makes no sense. So these kids now saying, well, you can't do anything to me, because if you put your hands on me or if you arrest me, I'll be out in 5 seconds. And they're right. If you arrest a young person now, unless it's murder, they are done before you finish the paperwork.
So what type of, I hate to use the word punishment, but what type of ramifications do they have to prevent that behavior in the future?
There is none. And that's why you see it spiraling out of control, because there is nothing. And these kids know that, right? Where they can come up and cause chaos. They can shut down businesses. They can assault people in front of you.
So I'm just processing this in my head. So the pain associated with that behavior is less than the value of any type that I get out of that behavior. So what is the motivation to stop the behavior?
There isn't any.
My God.
Just a comment from Eric Kennedy says, Larry had the protective spirit at a young age. I know this personally.
Well, thank you for that. But it was something that I learned. It was taught. It was in my home from my mom, my grandmother, my grandfather. The adults in my life is why I am an adult. And my mom is no longer here with me, and God, I miss her. But
she's not here physically.
Physically, that's right. You're absolutely right. Thank you for that correction, my brother. But I still have the presence of conducting myself in a way that would make her proud. Like I still, as grown as I am, I still don't talk to people who even younger than me in a disrespectful way.
I can say that with spiritually, because my mom and my dad, my older brother, even my younger brother, they are not here. My uncles and all these individuals who influenced me as a person. But based on my behavior, based on how I see other people, how I view Scripture and the Lord, they're in me. You see what I'm saying? Because they guided me when I was they were influential in my upbringing. And so I have two older siblings, and the oldest of the oldest sibling always remind us, this is not who we are as a people. This is not how we were raised. This is not how Grandpa nurtured us.
Right.
So you have those. You have to have that family foundation, which is where I'm going, even as an adult, to keep you in line. But when you don't have that foundation, then what happens? Society starts to dissolve in terms of moral values and how you behave.
But I would add, only thing I would add to, I think you are spot on. I would only add to the family was the village. Right.
That's a good point.
Right. It was because that was just the inside. So that coating, that armor, it actually expanded, right? Because if you went next door to your neighbors, right, your friend's mom's, it was no difference.
But
she had all the permissions Right.
You got that right.
Exactly. Right. And it's interesting how when you say things, people are like, wow, that was the culture.
That was the culture.
And
you
it
got that
worked, right?
Yeah.
So it's why we're the men we are. It's why we're.
But the thing is, Larry, is that society wasn't as litigious then. It wasn't as quick to go to the courts and sue for for the value of money, just to get the money out of it. It was expected that that the community would help in the process because people were working.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it took 2 or 3 checks to actually maintain or sustain the household. So people expected that other individuals in the community will actually be there to discipline my child when they saw something wrong.
Right.
I even remember as a child in Augusta, Georgia, playing hooky from school, and one of the neighbors saw me, and he tightened me up real quickly and took me back to school. And I'm negotiating with him on the way to school, saying, can we not tell my father?
Because they're gonna thank them for that,
exactly,
and you're gonna get another,
exactly.
Right.
Don't tell my dad. Don't let my older sister know that I'm
that was a win.
That was a win. I was like, do this right now, so I can get avoid it at home.
Right. You didn't fight with them.
No, I didn't fight with them.
You weren't disrespectful to them.
No, not at all.
Right. But you learned a lesson.
Yes, sir.
All right, about
Absolutely.
accountability at an early age, right? Because your parents couldn't always be everywhere, right?
They couldn't be. They had to work.
And what did that send a message to you? That there were eyes everywhere, right?
Exactly.
Now parents will come and fight other parents. Their kids see them in conflict, right?
And what message is that sending to them?
This is how you resolve conflict.
You resolve conflict. You don't have to talk through it. Violence is the tool that I use. Out of all the tools on my Batman belt, I grab Mr. Violence, and that's how I would deal with it.
In the scissors or the knives or the guns. And now we have life-changing situations where, look, a couple of weeks ago, we had a 16-year-old that was involved in an alleged homicide, stabbing 2 people, right? Now she's tried, 16 years old. She's tried as an adult.
And this is the reason why I think it was Sister Priscilla who has a program where they're teaching kids how to deal with how to solve problems.
Marcus Garvey.
Yes. Yeah. And these are the kind of grassroots programs we need in our community of color. Yeah. Because the family, unfortunately, for whatever social reasons, are not doing it.
No.
And so now we need to have.
But I think the sad part is that usually the kids that will enroll and participate in that are the ones who most likely are going to be good. You know what I'm saying? Like the kids that are hardcore, they don't.
So they're already gone.
Stop. Yeah, it's sad. But
so how do we get them back though?
Well, this is where I say we're not going to save everyone, and some kids had to be made lessons of, right? Because that's how it was. It's like when you got a beat and you was in front of the other kids.
Oh my God!
Right? It wasn't.
you touching some hard topics,
right?
You go to school and get a beat in front of your kids.
Exactly.
Oh my God!
That was intentional to say to the folks, you can avoid this if you choose to.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God! You just brought back a flashback from the Oliver Wendell Holmes back in 1973,
right.
Doc.
Exactly.
Like my mother came up there, boy, and man, there was some. Woo! Right. There was some furniture in this classroom being moved.
But let me ask you this question: how many other times did she have to do that?
No, that was it.
Okay,
that was it. One time.
Now the parents come up. And the child tell them that the teacher, they're more likely to jump on the administrators and the staff than to correct the behavior of the child.
Yeah, amen. Yeah.
Right? And so now when society at some point doesn't treat their child in that way, doesn't allow their children to speak to them in that way, or when you can go and insult your boss or another employee there, and now there's a consequence for it. I'm a victim. Well, I got away with this forever, and now someone's holding me accountable.
Yeah, accountable. Well, what does that mean? You know what I mean? So that's the problem we have, Larry. Don't know yet how we're going to go back to those early values, go back to that concept around family. A village is a family.
Well, when you have
took a village type
parents who were in their teens and grandparents who were in their 30s or early 30s, their lives a problem, right? Because there's wisdom that comes with youth. Right, with age, right, and I mean, at 16 years old, being a young parent, you think you know it all, and yes, your body can produce a child. Doesn't mean that you should or you're ready for it.
But also having a system in place where you're sending money to a parent who's young, You know, not that that parent doesn't need it, but what happens is that it's what does it say to the child? You know, you have this, depending on the state.
Right.
What does it say to the child? You know, I can do the same thing. I don't have to worry about education. I don't have to worry about school because all I have to do is it's a trap.
Yeah. And then you realize
Yeah.
it doesn't pay enough because, like I said, the equalizers, when you pull up to the gas station, there's no line for people who are on government assistance. It's $3 and something
That's right.
for everybody.
That's right.
When you go to the grocery store,
it's the same price.
Right.
It doesn't say,
And
you know what, if you're poor, you pay this. If you're rich, you pay that.
that's right. And
You
even
know,
though you
other
feel
than
like
taxes.
you're not coming out of your pocket directly, you're not getting any more. Actually, the person who's working, who's making more, could buy more because they have the means to do so. So you're shortchanging yourself.
Well, the idea of it being on a fixed income at 30 as opposed to a fixed income at 69,
right.
that doesn't sit well. It shouldn't sit well with anyone. You know what I mean? Because if you're on the system, you're on a fixed income.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so when you're on a fixed income, there's not much you can buy, but it's also not much you can do in terms of growing your kids to be respectful.
Well, that's why the banks, they say if you take out more than they've changed a lot of money. When you take out more than you put in, they tell you, hey, you've overdrawn.
You call it deficit, brother. Call it deficit.
That's right. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the round table.
My two favorite people in the whole wide world. What's going on?
Oh, Cliff! Wow,
Hey, Cliff,
wow!
how you doing? I feel honored.
I
Man.
know.
I got to check myself out. He's talking about me.
Well, thank you for that kind words. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you, brother.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I have to support my brothers.
I appreciate it. Well, we're trying to do our part, Cliff. It's getting more difficult, my brother. I mean, we were just saying is that, parenting is it's not. There's no book. People have written books on parenting, but until you actually do it, whew.
You got that right. Parenting is there's no way you can. And in fact, I was talking to my one of my girls last night, and I said to her, she was talking about what her daughter's doing. I was like, well, wait a second, I can tell you, you did the same thing.
Right.
No, Dad, I didn't do that. And I said to her, listen, baby, there is no manual. Right? You know what I mean? There's no operational manual. You have to actually do it yourself. And also, I would argue that, in some cases, you do back to how you were raised.
Yeah.
And this is what my parents taught me.
Well, let me just say this before I get Cliff's opinion. If there was a manual that was written back then, my mom would have used that on me. That's right. Exactly. She wouldn't have read it because it wasn't going to tell her nothing, right? If she had made her decision.
It becomes an instrument of discipline.
Pastor House,
Yeah, just there is a manual, and it's the Bible, right?
Oh.
Right. The Bible says, "Train up a child in the way that it should go."
Yeah.
Thank you,
when it
Pastor.
grows
Preach, brother.
old,
Come on
it
now.
won't
Come on
depart.
now.
All right.
Come on.
All right. He stood up for that one.
Well, he's a man of God. You're supposed to stand up with
That's
the
right.
scripture. Oh, come on, man. I missed that one, Doc. You know what I mean? I missed it. That's a good one. I appreciate you.
So-
that I do appreciate.
So, Cliff, how do we, if at all, get back on track with really it starts in the home, but we see there's lack of parental supervision. Kids are now basically these devices are raising them, and so that means that society is raising your child.
I think that in some cases, the parents are too much of a friend than a parent.
Mm.
If you start being friends with your kids and put the discipline down, like I said, thank God for my mother. My mother was a strict disciplinarian.
Yeah.
I couldn't. If I did something in school to cut up, I would be asking my friends, like, yo, can I spend the night at your house?
Yeah.
Because my mother didn't play that.
Yeah.
And we have to get back to raising our kids as a village. We lost that way.
Right. But Cliff, how do we do that when folks have become, as Dr. Browley said very well, people have become so dependent on the system, right, that they don't see the trap in that? Because when I was growing up, it was it was embarrassing, right? Like I said, we talked about how good the cheese and stuff was, but we didn't want to go stand in line for it because there was a stigma attached to it. When I used to go, my mom had lost her job, and we got the food stamps, right? And I would wait till everybody was out of the store because I didn't want to pull out that food stamp book in there, right? And I never wanted to aspire to that, where now I see young kids walking in with that card. They know how to use it better than the parents do. And they figured, oh, this is easy. This is free. I know my niece, who at the age of 18 told me she was going to have a child so she could now move up in the line to get public housing. That somehow that was a victory. So I guess, how do we change that mindset, or can we? Because I think it's baked in now.
It's once you embed a child in something, it's already in bed. Because if you trying to, like, would you say like the food stamp? It was back then. It was like, oh, I hope my friends don't see me with the food stamp. Now it's like, okay,
it's on the
they're proud of it because we depend on the government to take care of us so many times. That way, it's like, okay, let the government do it. Let the government take care of me with housing. Let the government take care of me with this. Let the government take care of me with that. And then we have a next generation that follows the same pattern and the same behaviors as their mothers or their fathers.
But when the government takes care of you, and Cliff he's right on target here. But I would argue that is all calculated, because when I take care of you, I don't have to worry about your loyalty.
But I also control you.
I can control you.
Right.
You know, I can tell you when to vote, where to vote, what to do, where to wear, what to wear, where to go. I can tell you all those things. Why? Because I'm sending you a check.
Right.
And in our society, you know, I work for you, you pay me. As I work for you, I do what you tell me to do.
Right.
It's analogous to slavery.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so you have to understand that, you know, this whole process around this socialism as it relates to the welfare system,
right.
it serves the purpose of maintaining a status quo in our society structure.
Let me share this quick story with you, gentlemen, right? I was a young officer, right? And this was back when parenting was parenting. My partner and I was 19. I hadn't even turned 20 yet when I graduated from the police academy. Right back then, you could be 19 years old.
Yeah, but that means your mother had to sign a waiver for you.
Exactly.
And all that stuff.
That's right. Exactly. Right. So, to this point, I remember that was when we had that crazy first and last shift. Right. So we had just done a long, almost 24 hours at 16 hours in a 24-hour period. We responded to this call in Mattapan. They didn't even have a station up there, so we had to come out of Roxbury. We were assigned to Mattapan, but as the night starts winding down, you start trying to make your way so you can get out of there on time. Long story short, we get there, we pull up. There's a call for a domestic situation. This is before the law changes, and we pull up. We get out the car. We're walking up, and there's this young girl sitting on the wall of the house there. Right, we don't pay no attention to her. She's like about 14, 15 years old. We go upstairs, we knock on the door. Gentleman answers the door, and he looks at us, puzzled as to why we're there. And he was like, we didn't call. And the girl, when she walked up behind, she's like, I called. I was like, what's going on here? Now they're looking at her. I'm like, well, what's the problem here? So we go inside, and we're talking to him. Well, she had been out for 2 days. And she's decided to come home.
I had the same kind of call, man.
Okay. And so she has the presence of mind to call the police because she knows what's going to be waiting for her, right? When she gets there, right? So I looked at the parents and I said, this is not a police matter. I told my partner, we're out of here. 20 minutes later, the dispatcher calls us, hey, you need to go back up there. Things have gotten out of control. I go back up there. Mom and dad inflicted what needed to be done, right?
Discipline.
Exactly.
Corporal discipline.
Right. So I looked at the young girl and I told her, I said, look, if you pick up that phone and call us again, I said, you've been out for 2 days doing God knows what. You come home. What do you think they're going to be waiting for you with a bouquet of flowers? Don't call us again. I couldn't do that today.
Well, I had a similar situation when I was working overtime in District 4. Where I had a young man who was told to come in the house at when the lights are on. Well, he came in at 4:00 in the morning.
Okay.
And dad position was, boy, I'm gonna whoop your butt. Right. He calls us, and I said to the dispatcher, there's nothing happening here. The young man was 13 years old. Right. And I said, dude, you walking into your dad's house and he told you be in. I was like, man, there's nothing happening. Exactly. This is what I did, Larry. 14 Paul. In policing words, service rendered. There's no report required. Right. See you later.
But you couldn't do that today. We'll bring this other call. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the round table.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great and highly favored.
All right.
I hear that. I appreciate that one.
What say you? First, who we talking to?
I'm Adrian Jordan.
Okay.
I am a school teacher with the Boston Public School.
Ooh, okay. Well, you never know who's listening.
That's right.
I can appreciate you, sister. Come on, help us out here. Help us out here.
I was just listening to you guys talk about the incident with the young sixth graders. To hear that was kind of gut-wrenching to hear.
About the cards?
Yeah, like it's here, it's real, and it is happening more often than none. It's just not brought to the forefront. We see it every day. Kids are not even 6th grade. I'll even go lower than that in kindergarten. There are a lot of mean things kids are doing.
Kindergarten.
And they're getting it from home. Everything starts from home. I'm sorry. Your upbringing starts from home.
That's right.
So it's trained, it's taught.
It's a learned behavior.
Sitting at the table, learned behavior.
Yeah, no.
You know, and it's sad. You know, I used to think about my growing up. We sat at the table every day to have dinner, or if it was a Saturday, we had lunch, but we were talking about how was your day?
Right.
How are things going with you? Now you talk to students, and half the time they don't sit at the table with parents. They're moving and shucking and jiving, but they're talking about things in the kitchen or in here.
Or they're on their devices, right? So even if they are there, they're disconnected from the conversation.
Mentally, they're not, right. And they hear things that parents are talking about, whether it's on the phone or another parent to another parent, and they pick up. You know, they carry, and then they bring it to school. Well, so-and-so said this. I can say it too. But it's also the mindset of parents. Parents think it's okay to be your child's friend.
Not in my house, but right.
That's not the case. The friend that you need, I don't need to be your friend. We not sitting down smoking weed. We not talking and drinking together. I don't think so. That's not how I brought you up. But that's today's mindset.
Right. So my question, and thank you for this enlightening call. Because I was saying, I don't know how, if we can turn that page where we know it worked, right? We saw that we've given control of our households to children, and we're saying that if you discipline your child, because people still don't know that you can discipline your child, you just can't abuse them. And there's nothing that's going to be done. But a lot of parents,
there's a difference, by the way.
There's a huge difference, because like I told what they consider child abuse, my mom, God rest her soul, would have just been eligible for parole.
Come on,
right?
Man. I can still feel some of those beatings,
right.
man.
Oh, yeah.
I'm 67 years old.
But they didn't have to come as frequent, because the message was clear. This is not going to be tolerated. You are not an adult, and as long as I'm paying the bills, it was laid out. You don't pay for nothing.
Well, Doc, two concepts came to mind, and I'm going to play off these words here. Counselor, friendship. Democracy, benevolent dictatorship.
Okay.
That's what came to mind as we were talking as a parent. And I'm saying there were times in I raised 5 kids, a boy and 4 girls. And there's a time I would say to them, I am not your friend. Right. Even as an adult, I don't drink soda pop with I don't drink wine with you. I don't drink Coolies with you or Trulies, whatever those things are. You know what I mean? I'm dad. I'm your counselor. And I'm your coach. And the game is life. Don't come to me saying, Dad, let's have a brewski, because Dad don't drink brewski with my babies. All right. And then even at this time, when you're in my household, this is not a democracy.
Yeah.
This is not the fact that we're going to have this
You
conversation.
don't have a vote.
You don't have a vote. Now, I can tell you now, I can be a little benevolent, but it's going to be a dictatorship, because this is how it works.
Right.
And so if our parents take that perspective, look at parenting from, I think we have a better result. However, I think there's generations that we have already lost.
So So you're in the education field, and you see it. I work in the schools for the police. Full disclosure, I don't see it as up front as you do. How do we get back to the real parenting? How do we get back to what worked in our community? That village concept of what's needed, right? Where parents are not siding with coming up and assaulting other parents for really challenging their children in the way that they should in their behavior, and not telling who you think you are, telling my child to behave.
Well, first I want to say well said to my brother that just spoke. Well said. I believe in the same sentiments of what you just said. How do we get back? I still will go back.
Well, can we? Can we?
To a degree.
Okay.
I was with that village, where from not just my neighbors, but my community, we got involved. No one wants to get involved anymore. Right. They're scared if you say something. Usually parents will say, you can't tell my child anything. And in the same breath, they're cussing their child out. We need training for these parents, parent training, because a lot of our young people don't have it. They're just going with the flow.
Yeah.
What works for them, and if I give my child some cookies, sit them down with a book or video games, they're fine.
I say there's no books. The video, that's the
some of the books
babysitter.
they have is not what they're reading. If you would only see what some of these kids are reading, sometimes you're like, what? So
No, and to that point, like yesterday, I was reading an article where there was this rapper that these kids, a lot of them emulate him, and he was just arrested for murder. And there was the comments that were going back and forth because we monitor this stuff because it's going to impact the kids. And a lot of them were shocked because he was famous that he would be arrested for murder. And it's like, it still doesn't hit them the reality that you at some point you're going to be held accountable for your behavior.
Right. Yeah. But Larry, you know, in our society, though, you know, we project.
But this was their hero.
Well, I understand. What we project that money can exonerate you from from all things that you do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We
We've
project,
seen it with the orange man.
Exactly. That if you're rich and powerful, things don't apply to you.
Right.
Laws will not apply to you. But I think the sister's right on target. I think the other thing that we have to understand is that the music that's indoctrinated into the messages that are indoctrinated into our music is also destructive of our younger society.
Right.
You know, when we were dealing as kids, Marvin Gaye, The Temptations, James Brown, I'm Black and I'm Proud. Well, now what you get is the N-word.
Can I interrupt you for a second, Dr. Bradley? Because when you just said that, right, I was listening the other day, Black History Month, and Cirrus had, and they were counting down the music that was helping us during this revolution, right? And all of these songs, I hadn't even put it together, because when you said "Say It Loud," I'm Black and I'm Proud, and all the respect, all of these were meanings for us in a positive way, right?
Get us over.
That's right. That most of the stuff I hear today, I don't listen to it. I would not even play it, because see, I was never in the car with my mom and the radio was on and it was music that she had to change the channel because I was in the car because it wasn't appropriate for her or I. Now,
but Larry, look, see, this is this. You know, the unseen influencer. Who's paying who's paying the individuals who are producing this music? Right. They don't look like you and me.
Well, look at when you see the credits roll, right? It's
not going to be us.
Right.
So if I'm actually giving you the money, if I can say to you, well, listen, if you want this contract, you have to produce music of this type.
Right.
And I know that this music is sending a very negative message to our younger kids, so I can keep them actually hating and killing each other.
Right.
I'm sorry.
So Cliff and we got about a minute and a half. I want to give each of you, 45 seconds to make your closing comment here, and I'm going to start with our new caller and let you close.
And invite her to call back.
Yes, exactly. And
young lady, you got it, teacher.
Yeah.
Hi,
teacher
teacher.
something.
Hi,
Yes.
teacher.
Hi. I just say what you brothers are doing here on the radio station. I applaud you. I thank you. I wish we could hear more the positive things that we have in the community from young brothers as yourselves. We don't see this often. Everything is a negative. If we start seeing some of our leaders speak up and talk to some of our younger people. I know I talked to some of the guys, they say they're the OGs. I said, well, if you're the OGs, why don't you come and teach the young G's, what not to do, or just be that big brother, big sister type. You're hanging in the park, since you're here and they're playing basketball or whatever, take them, get a book, read, talk to them, but in a positive way. We have to get back to, we can't be scared to say something, and that's me. My daughter will tell me, Ma, that's not for you. Don't get involved. Yes, I am getting involved. Right. Someone got involved with my life as I was growing, even though I had the parents there to tell me, look, my house, this is what we do. But at the same time, it was rooted in me. These kids don't have that. So what I say is, if we can come together with the churches, our community, the corner stores, and things like that, get back involved, because my corner store, they knew me Where you going?
Right.
Your parents know you over here.
Right.
We don't know our children in the
it's just a
neighborhood
quick
anymore.
transaction.
We have to get back to that.
All right. Well, thank you, caller. Appreciate it. Cliff, that's tough to follow, but go ahead, try.
Right. All right. I will wrap it up with this. The men has to step up to teach these young boys how to become men. If I see a young man in the street or on the basketball court or something like that, I give him tools, I give him knowledge, I sit him down. We don't have that no more. Men are supposed to step up and be leaders in our community. Whether you're in church, whether you're at an organization, I need to see more men step up. And I take the initiative to step up myself and teach these young brothers.
Well, we appreciate it. So, caller, just a quick question for you. How did you find us? And please share with your friends and families that we're out here every Saturday morning from 7 to 10 a.m.
Will do. Pastor Hall.
Oh, Pastor Hall. Okay. All right.
Yes, Pastor Hall. I spoke with him. And my mom spoke to him, whom he knows my mom, my sister, and my dad.
All right.
So, and I will be sharing the word. I actually have been sharing.
All right. Well, we appreciate that.
We definitely do.
That's gonna do it for us.
But listen, y'all, y'all be blessed.
Yes, and stay warm.
You too.
All right.
Yeah,
all right.
You're going out
Blessings.
there. You too as well. Well, Dr. Bradley, that's going to do it. Pastor Hobbs and I are going to do what you did 2 hours ago. We're going to try to get a little breakfast here.
Well, my grandson has a basketball game
coming
up at 11:30.
Right? Yeah,
I got to get
out
of here.
I got to
roll out.
Yeah, and literally
I might get a donut, though, because I am an old cop.
Time to make the donuts, all right? Pastor Hobbs, thank you, sir. Dr. Bradley, I got nothing to say to you, bro.
It's a blessing,
to At the Round Table with Namleo. Some of us
blessed.
are more fuller than others, but Dr. Bradley is okay.
Life is good, Doc.
Yeah.
You all be blessed out there. See you
right.
next week by the grace of God.
Yes, we will. Take care.
Cause I still believe that anything is possible as long as you work hard. Hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle. So if I never see ya, never get the chance to meet ya, no, I came up from the bottom, always rooting for the underdog. I always dreamed I'd be on tour. Instead of laying dealers on the floor, sitting in the hole, knowing I was meant for more. Swear money's its own addiction. Back then I lacked the vision, so every time I went to sleep, it's like I woke back up in prison. To the brothers coming up, keep your nose in the books. Ignore the looks, so you can give back what we took. The 90s taught us that the government is really corrupt. Like the Matrix, choose the red pill and wake up. The feds raided all major cities from Boston to Watts. Took kids out the classroom and put them in general pop. Where are all the black leaders when you really need them? They kill X and Dr. King and left these house Negroes leading. They probably in church praying people act decent. You gotta be willing to die for your beliefs. Ask Jesus. This is for the dreamers. They say I am a dreamer. Cause I still believe that anything is possible as long as you work hard. Hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle. So if I never see ya, never get the chance to meet ya, no, I came up from the bottom, always rooting for
Boston Praise Radio, the voice of the church in New England. The views and opinions expressed by the following paid program are those of the program producers, and they do not reflect the views and opinion of Boston Praise Radio, its staff, or management.
Hi, this is Mike D of the UA7 Gospel Countdown, Urban America's 7 biggest current songs and more. Join us in fellowship with our broadcast on www.bostonpraiseradio.tv, Roku TV, and WBPG 102.9 FM radio. These TV and radio networks are all coming out of Boston. Radio and TV that cares about Boston and beyond. This is yours sincerely, Mike D of the UA7 Gospel Countdown. Tune in and be blessed.
This is Renee Wise, station manager for the Boston Praise Radio and TV network of 30 radio, TV, social media, and internet stations. You can broadcast on our network by just giving